All right, so we are to discussion board number 5, Friday of our first week of working our classes out totally online. Um, as I said at the very beginning, the whole point of this was to bring kind of all 150 all of the students that I have in 4 different classes. The sophomores are predominantly sophomores in fundamentals of environmental engineering, and then a variety of different students, some grad students, some juniors, seniors, some folks that are taking elective courses in my public health engineering course, my science diplomacy course, and my environmental design course. So I'm trying to bring everybody together with a single video under a single umbrella, and it's been neat to watch the post on all 4 discussion boards. I've been super impressed. Those memes or videos or clips of things to kind of, laughing through the tears that we did yesterday, they were fantastic. I tweeted what I thought was my most favorite one, probably will get me in trouble. I'm teasing, I won't be in trouble, but there was a meme that was put together that was talking about how much it costs to stream various sources of entertainment and information. Some of you have probably seen it. I'm sure a bunch of you have already seen it. But anyway, it was listing the cost per year for different services. And as you might imagine, like the cost per year for Netflix is like $100, and the cost per year for Hulu and all these different things is like about $100. Missouri University of Science and Technology, all the other universities now, everybody would be in this space. So now that everyone is home and they're watching these videos, now suddenly you have professors entertaining you or educating you at a cost of tens of thousands of dollars per year. So that one for me was I was floored when I saw that one. They were all great. I thought they were hysterical. Everybody was on point. So well done. But yeah, when I saw that, I thought, wow, yeah, it is kind of an interesting world we're in. So, all right. So, beginning of this week, I talked about the fact that good teachers, right, effective teaching causes measurable improvements in the knowledge, skills, and attitudes of students. What we've got in our head, what we've got in our heart, and what we can do with our hands. And we started to apply this to a little bit of self-help and a little bit of kind of self-care and a little bit about getting our minds around these things. So we ask in our head, what is the flattening the curve? And that's all about making sure we wash our hands, practice some social distancing. In other words, do things so that the peak of this viral infection is a little bit less, and the acute healthcare system can take care of the people that need ventilators and respirators. So we got our mind around why we're doing this in our head. And then we talked a little bit about our heart, our feelings. So how does this make us feel? Scared, anxious, frustrated, disappointed, all of those kinds of things. So that was great because we were all able to kind of share. And then we got in with our hands, with our life hacks. And then our last one, the fourth one, was looking at how do we, have laughing through the tears, right? So looking at some of these memes. I'm going to turn back now towards the head. And I'm going to turn back because I got a question from a couple of folks yesterday relative to the life hack, and I thought it was a great question. Some folks looked at me and they said, but Dan, it looks like maybe you're not waking up early and taking your shower first thing in the morning, like, are you okay? Are you, because I was changing my clothes for the different videos that I was doing for the syllabus. And so some people are like, well, hey, Dan, are you doing okay? And first of all, I really appreciate that. Believe it or not, professors are people too, and we need people to ask and check in on us. But the real answer is that, I work in situations where illness is pretty common. Most of my work that's overseas is done specifically to do public health engineering, right? So that's where on Monday, the first video I was explaining, I save lives. I save lives millions at a time, right? I make sure that people have access to water and sanitation and hygiene. One of the life hacks I've always done for that is that when I'm in a situation where things are a little bit more dangerous in terms of the transmission of illness, a little bit more opportunity to get sick from things, I actually take my shower at night right before I go to bed. it's kind of like you've been up all day long and you've been exposed to whatever you've possibly been exposed to. I like to wash all that off so that I actually sleep clean, because when I'm sleeping, of course I'm going to touch my face. Of course I'm going to put my face in my pillow. So I actually want to sleep in a clean bed, and I want to go to bed clean. So I always wash up, take a shower, do whatever, depending on what country I'm in and what resources there are. I always clean up actually right before I go to bed in the evening, as opposed to when I first wake up in the morning. And part of that is because I've noted, like, what do other people in some of these countries do, and I've seen some of that behavior, and then I've reflected on it. I've thought, okay, that there's some wisdom behind that, because you can be conscious about things while you're awake in terms of preventing transmission of illness. When you're asleep, it's more difficult to be conscious of those things. So it's probably wise to be extra clean before you go to sleep so that you stay clean while you're sleeping. So that brings me to the topic that I want to talk about today. What I mean by this is that when I look at situations as an engineer, I see the stuff that's right in front of me. I mean, I pay attention to that, and I pay attention to the things that are in my peripheral vision. I look at what's going on, but I actually focus on the things that are in the distance, the over the horizon, right? I'm guilty of being the big picture thinker, right? I'm looking for what's over the horizon. And I'd like us to get in our head, heart, and skills space about thinking a little bit in that over the horizon, right? So when you're in an emergency, the first thing you do is focus very local. Make sure you've got self-care going, you're taking care of yourself. But as soon as you kind of get yourself in a good spot, and you want to keep yourself in a good spot, it's important that you start looking out to the future so that you can make wise decisions. So here, let's move back to the head. Let's move back to the cognitive. All across the United States, in many other countries as well, but definitely here in the United States, there is a growing push to do more social isolation, to kind of, not force it, but strongly encourage it by limiting the size of the groups of people that can get together, by cutting down on the hours of some of our grocery stores. In many places, we're starting to limit whether a restaurant can actually serve clients in the restaurant, or whether they need to have them do a drive-through or a walk-up service or a delivery service. So we're making some substantial changes to the way our economy operates. And those are being made for public health purposes, right? I mean, we do that all the time. I mean, if a restaurant wants to serve customers, they've got to have a bathroom so that customers can wash their hands before they eat. And so restaurants already have to bear the cost of that, right? They've got to have a bathroom. They've got to have somebody clean it. They've got to put soap and water, and somebody's got to make sure when the bathroom gets disgusting that it gets undisgusting. So restaurants have already got to have a public bathroom because that's part of public health rules. So we already incorporate some of that cost into it. So saying, okay, well, restaurants, now we've got to bear the added cost of, you can't have people in your restaurant, you got to have people do drive-through or through delivery. Okay, so we understand that there's like choices that we make to protect health, and that those things have some cost. So here's where I want you to get in with your head, where I want to get in your cognitive. When are we going to switch back? What's the criteria for reopening restaurants, cafes, coffee shops, right? I mean, I appreciate, agree with the flatten the curve. The methods for doing that, I totally understand. Let's be 50 people, or let's be 10 people, or let's close a restaurant. Okay. Is the intention to close restaurants, to walk up in delivery for a week, for a month, for 6 months, for a year? I mean, if right now we look around and most of us aren't sick and we're closing down our restaurants, if we look around a month from now and there's a lot of people that still aren't working, and there's a lot of people that aren't going to restaurants, and there's more of us that are sick, is that the time to open the restaurants? Like, how many cases of illness do we have to go down to reopen the restaurants? Is it zero? Because if it's zero, we already closed them with zero. Not exactly. We closed them with it growing from zero to some number. So what does it look like to be on the other side of the curve and think about what does it look like to open things back up? We're public health engineers, right? We need to start designing this system. We need to start thinking about what does it look like to emerge on the other side of a reality where we have a virus circulating through the population. Some people will have been sick. There already are some people that have died. So if that's the reality, and we've done this to flatten the curve, then do we keep flattening the curve? And at what point in time have we flattened it enough? And if that was the point, then how do we measure that? How do we measure that we flattened it enough and we can get back to business as normal and move the economy forward? And I bring this up I am 100% not being critical of what decisions are being made right now. I'm saying we are public health engineers. Our job is to think about not just what's right in front of us and not just what's in our peripheral vision, but also what's over the horizon. And let's ask ourselves, are we going to have 4th of July parades? Is school going to be back in session in August? Are college students going to still be doing online in August, or will they be back to school? We closed all the way through the end of this winter semester, right? So we're closed until May, right? Practically speaking, are we going to have graduation ceremonies? Would we have graduation ceremonies if there were tens or hundreds of thousands of people running a fever because they had an active viral infection? Certainly in the past, we've had graduation ceremonies, and there's people with the flu, and there's people with seasonal allergies, and there's people who are sick. So we've held all of our graduation ceremonies to date with people who are sick. We've held all of our 4th of July parades with people who are sick. So sickness is not really the thing we're trying to get rid of, because we don't go to zero sickness. We have reasons for public health interventions. We put sinks and soap in restaurants so people can wash their hands, but we don't enforce it. We don't have a police officer standing there making sure you've washed your hands before you eat your hamburger. So what are we going to do on the other side of this flattening the curve? What does that start to look like? And how would we be able to measure that? And how would we be able to communicate that to people? And once we communicated that to people, how would they know what it was we were doing if we were in some parts of the country opening things up and in other parts of the country not opening them up because the numbers told us this is the strategy we need to have, as our strategy would maybe look more heterogeneous, more granular, different strategies for different states, for different cities, for different parts of the country, for different populations. How do we start to communicate that to people? So we're really back squarely in the space of public health engineering, right? We've got things that are going to cost money to save lives. And the question is, which ones are we going to do and why? And what information do we need to be able to make good decisions? So, discussion board exercise number 5 is for you to give some thought to the question, when do we reopen everything? What's the information or evidence you'd need to be able to make that decision? How would you handle communicating that to the public in a way they can understand? So this is really getting back up in the headspace, and it's really looking out over the horizon. Now, I realize some of you are going to say, I'm a sophomore. Some of you are going to say, I'm a graduate student. You're going to come at this from different perspectives, and there's different examples floating around out there. But this is a think, pair, share exercise, right? So first, think. It doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter how much you already know. Great ideas come from smart people giving an effort to thinking. You're all smart people, so let's give an effort to thinking. What would it look like? When would we make this choice? What information would we need? So, discussion board number 5, simple question. when do we reverse, when do we change, when do we modify this flattening the curve behavior? What's the information we need to be able to make that decision? And how do we communicate that decision so the public understands what we're talking about? Please post your answers to that question in the discussion board, and please comment on somebody else's answers. Now, this is going to be a little bit more contentious because people are going to have different views. But remember, we are engineers solving a problem. This is about brainstorming and creating solutions. This is not about blaming people because they shut it down, because that was a wise choice. So we're not talking about how do we walk that back. Where we are is a good space in the sense that we've made some wise decisions to do some public health activities. So I'm not looking for you to beat up on what we're doing now. I'm looking for you to ask yourself 2 weeks from now, a month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, how are we doing this curve flattening? Do we still do it or do we not? If people are still sick, do we still have restaurants open? Can you still go get a haircut? What does that look like while there's a sickness running through the population? So, 5th discussion board. When do we open things back up? What's the information you need to make that decision? And how do we communicate that to the public? Have fun.